All I'm saying is interns don't count. Interns
Aibo.
apparently don't count. So like I'm out. So for me, unfortunately I cannot assist in this argument. Interns don't count when you're not on the show. You're not on the show.
Bakh'abantu, you can't remove yourself when it works for you, but it's all good. I hope you guys can you guys hear me clearly? I'm just trying to get the technical things on the road. If you guys can hear me, then it's all good.
No, we're hearing
We
you
can
loud and clear.
That's sick. Okay,
It's good
awesome.
to
So
see you on the show.
say again for me.
It's good to see you on the show.
Oh, it's nice to be here. I mean, like, I'm a little bit nervous, obviously, because, like, you know, the first time running the ship, you know, like I'm in the pilot seat, but it's also very exciting because I guess ultimately this is where I want to see myself. Like,
So I think you need to check your levels because
New
there's a
boss.
note here. There's a note here saying that they can't hear us, that we're very low on the app. So will somebody please check
Okay, well, we've got a great
check the sound
behind me. So technical, please get technical. Being technical is so nice. It's like you can just like push a couple of buttons and like magic happens. It's a very nice thing.
Absolutely.
Cool. So I know today is Thursday and we usually do Sis Pumi talking all things politics, and she's got like great guests lined up. I know today that's going to happen on the Burning platform from 7:00. Pumi, you'll also be chilling with Elito and Doba, which is something I'm looking forward to. As somebody who's like not really into politics, I think this one's going to be very, very cool. And then between now and then, obviously, we've got a jam-packed show for you. Everything that you need to know that's happening in the news. I mean, the nice thing is that this is a podcast and we're literally chilling and talking to you about what we think is important. But we also keep you up to date with the things that are happening in the world, because after this, you must also go out there into the world and be able to say that you know what's up. And that's the nice thing about listening to the show. If you're listening on the app, make sure that you subscribe. If you're on YouTube and you're watching us, click like, comment in the sections, do everything to get involved. And welcome to the show. I'm going to kickstart with Sis Pumi. I mean, we spoke a little bit, Izola, about Trevor Noah, and I feel like Gareth got a little bit like pressed. Like, if you're listening, like he was pressed. He was just like, you know, Trevor Noah did this, Trevor Noah did that. But I also find it quite interesting how involved he's getting in this Kanye and Kim saga. Like, first it was like he's going for Kim. Now it seems like he's also going for Kanye. I don't know what they did to Trevor and why he's feeling so hurt. It's just.
So did you see yesterday afternoon, which would have been long after your show?
Yeah.
Kanye West's kind of Instagram post about, and then this morning we wake up and actually Kanye West has been suspended. He's in the sin bin. He's in Instagram sin bin for 2 days. His account is suspended because essentially what he said is hate speech.
Yeah.
But what exactly like did he say?
No, he posted like, yo, that post is terrible. He called him a coon.
He called him a coon.
Yeah.
Because
he was like, even in the like form of lyrics. Yeah, he was like kumbaya, like to like Trevor's like picture attached and whatnot.
Oh, my first thing is where is like this Trevor thing?
No. Except what Trevor said is 100% correct. Sure. What Trevor spoke about is an incredibly important thing to talk about. I think for South Africans, it's also it's very like close to home. It's very close to home. And he was. Did you see the clip? I mean, it's 9 minutes. It's 9 minutes long, and Trevor is simply saying what is happening to Kim Kardashian happens to many, 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 many women. And if Kim Kardashian, as rich and powerful and in the eye of everybody, can be harassed in this manner by her ex-husband, and she can't do anything about it. Imagine if you're like a woman in a shack with 4 kids and you don't work. Imagine the kind of bullshit you have to go through. And Trevor actually told the story. I don't know if you guys know this about Trevor, but he actually also told the story about his mom getting shot by her then husband, right? Because everybody, and he says, because everybody kept saying to her, you're overreacting. You're overreacting. He's not, you know.
But like, my thing is, I'm at the point where I believe every single thing that Kanye says, every single thing that Kim says and does is all just for talkability, and the fact that it's probably going to be like episode 1 of season 25,000 on their reality show. I don't know if I'm that, like, if I can sit and believe it and say, yeah, this is really real and it's actually happening. This is all for talk, guys. These people are stars and their currency is talkability. There is a possibility that we're all just being roped into this thing, creating another hoo-ha, so that next week, when it's a big reveal of their new season, it's like, oh, that's why. I just don't know if I can believe it anymore. It's just too stitched together, in my opinion.
Y'all, we all know.
Nah, but he actually
Kanye is
addresses that.
unstable.
He actually addresses that. He actually addresses that. Like, this could be a stunt, but at the same time, like, even if it's a stunt, like what Sis Pumi says, regular people go through this. So it's like really awareness in the sense that, like, she's being harassed. It could be like for episode 1 of Kim's new show, Kanye dropping a new album, but the harassment though is real. Like,
if it
she's
is
saying to this
talkability,
guy, stop, and this guy is not stopping.
I don't know.
If it is talkability, then it is completely worth having the conversation the way Trevor is having it. If they are doing it for talkability, like we say, right? If art imitates life or life imitates art, whichever way you want to look at it, this is what that is about. That's the point that Trevor's making. Is that Tracy just sent a message saying that there's a series on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yo, Tracy, people don't even need to stalk you. And this is why I'm saying, like, for a South African and for us in our context, how many stories do we know? Some girl chopped up and put in a suitcase by the boyfriend, like hung in the tree and burnt by a boyfriend. But all of that shit happens.
I hear you, and I completely agree with you in terms of the South African context. This is our reality. There's no week that goes by where we don't hear that a police cop shot his wife dead, blah, blah, blah. It's a very, very ongoing big crisis in South Africa. I just don't know if Kim Kardashian and Kanye West doing whatever they're doing is like the direction that we need to go. If we're talking, let's find solutions for us as a country. I don't think it's the thing. I just think it's a bit out of context, if anything, compared to the real life things that the average South African woman goes through via GBV and everything we're discussing. I think Kim Kardashian and Kanye West are just two celebrities enjoying being the hot topic for maybe 3 or 4 months straight, nonstop. And they're just milking this.
Listen here. And all I'm saying is, even if that is what has happened here, although we all know Kanye is unstable. Like, we know this. He has told us this. He has told us. So how, at which point, so the person who has said to you, I actually have mental health problems, and we see his manic self, because what we're seeing is we're seeing manic Kanye. And then we're just like, oh, it's reality TV. It is not. We're gonna, and this is the point though. This is the point that Trevor's making, is if we don't even just pay attention just a little bit and then say, dude, do you need help? Should we, Kim, are you safe? If we don't do that, because we're just like, okay, we're waiting for the big reveal. And then we're gonna look back and be like, whoo, but we saw it coming. Next thing, Kanye's shot Kim.
Like, even if it is a stunt, it's worth guys. Can we approach Kanye and be like, dude, like, stop? She's asked you to stop. And then, can people intervene? Like, what the conversation with Trevor's having?
Who is we? Are we? When you say can we approach Kanye? Number one, who is Kanye West going to listen to? If you've watched Kanye West's documentary Genius, which just came out on Netflix, another thing that just happened to come out where he just got like 60 million right in the middle of his divorce thing. By the way, side note, if you watch Genius, this thing of Kanye West losing his mind, exposing his bipolar, whatever the case is, this isn't like Istaf Saizola. It didn't just happen. He's had this thing ongoing throughout since his mother's death, right? And obviously his relationship with Kim just kind of amplified it. And that's when he became more, I guess, comfortable being his true self in the world, messing around in politics, doing more the Trump thing, whatever. Everything that Kanye West did, I was just like, dude, you're losing your mind. He's clearly there. If people in Hollywood can't even say, Kanye West, my brother, slow down. You're going to hurt Kim or somebody's going to get hurt. Who can tell Kanye West to stop? Because he is a genius.
That's what Trevor's doing. Arguably, that's what Trevor's doing. Arguably, that's what Instagram did by banning him. Like, take a break, dude. That's the intervention I think we kind of need.
Okay, so when Instagram says take a break, like this is a conversation we've had a lot of times. Are we actually making the situation better by saying, stop talking, Kanye? Or are we just amplifying? Because when he comes back, he's just going to keep talking and he's going to talk worse. A little bit of a suspension from Instagram is not going to scare Kanye, guys. Kanye West.
So Jittery also in the comments here is raising another issue around this. And this is, for me, so these are all the many little things that are the conversations that need to be had, right? Like, can Kanye decide? And this happens to women too. You leave your husband or you break up with your boyfriend and you have kids, and then that person still wants to dictate your life, So Kanye is saying he doesn't care about Kim and Pete. He just doesn't want Pete around his kids. The fuck? They're also Kim's kids.
Fair. But if he's not getting invited to his kids' birthday parties, his children's birthday parties, Trevor Scott
have his own. He can also have his own birthday party with his kids. Let his kids have 2 birthday parties.
I don't know, man.
I don't think the kids would mind. I don't think the kids would mind.
I just think, when it comes to Kanye will always be misunderstood. And what he's doing to Kim, yes, it's nonsense. If it's truly what is happening, it's nonsense. But the Kardashians have fooled us once. They've fooled us twice. I'm not going to be fooled again by them when this is all just for their TV show at the end of the day. But if we are, looking at the side of the reality when real women are going through this and this is their real lives, then that's a conversation we can definitely engage in. But let's see how it goes. These guys are rich. These guys are balling. I mean, they don't really care about our thoughts. They're just like keeping it moving, and will continue to do whatever the hell that they want to do at the end of the day. Like, story of their lives.
Although I just in closing, I just want you to know that I think Trevor Noah did the right thing. I think Trevor Noah had the right conversation, using the right examples in an apt manner and at the right time. That's it. Mic drop.
So 1 point for Trevor. That's a good start. No, I'll check it out. Honestly, I didn't get a chance to see it. If it's a full 9 minutes, I'll check it out after the show, and then I'll see. I'll see what's up. Then I'll let you know. But it is what it is. I think, as long as you're doing what you need to do and you're focusing on your life, there's nothing we can do to move these people. But all we can do is obviously try. I know, Bakh'abantu, there's something that's been on your mind about basic education. Like when I think about the subjects that I had in high school, it's just like probably the standard subjects that most people had: more maths, more English. What. So it seems like the Department of Basic Education is introducing a new subject. Like,
I don't know. I don't know if we can trust Angie Moshecha with this, but they're introducing coding and robotics. I'm like,
okay.
There's schools that are still it's a great initiative. Like everything in South Africa looks great on paper. Like our constitution looks great on paper. Everything in South Africa looks great on paper. But Department of Education introducing robotics and coding. But we're still struggling with the math problem, guys. Where are the matric results where you guys didn't count math as a requirement to pass? So we still have those problems, but you guys are introducing robots and coding. It's a great thing. I would have loved to have done robotics and coding. I'm a new age grade 12. I'm not from standards. Oh, did you guys have standards in the German school system?
No, actually, we did not.
We had grades.
Oh, you guys had grades.
No, so it wasn't grades. They didn't call it grades. Remember, it's Deutsch, so it was like Klasse.
Oh.
This is humi. Are you okay?
I'm just saying. Get with that.
Flex. It's a flex. Don't mind me.
No, but what would what would you have rather learned? And what would you have rather learned at school?
Yeah.
No, I would have rather learned stuff like robotics and like also like so I'm a big fan of like this is gonna get a lot of hate because it usually gets a lot of hate with among my fans. But like I hate the languages. I hated the languages. I didn't get the point. I think like okay, I passed Afrikaans like but yeah, like I hated English. I didn't see the point past grade 9 unless you really wanted to pursue that. I think it should have been a choice. Like if I wanted to learn about Shakespeare, like that should have been a choice. Like I'm not in a worse off place, but like I would have preferred stuff like, oh, dude, like, can you choose English or can I choose more subjects? I would have loved to learn business instead of English. I would have loved to learn like economics instead of what, but I was forced to like accounting, math, like physics and life sciences. But like the
What do you
languages,
think?
I think at grade 9 we kept what I can learn from languages. I knew what a verb was at grade 9. So I think we should have these more subjects and like diversify, like, and also like not force kids to.
I have a
I don't know,
question for
man.
you,
Like,
Bakh'abantu. I have a question for you. What do you think the purpose of school is?
the purpose of school is to create robots that can work in the manufacturing line. That's the purpose of school, is to like, I don't know, man. I know it's for me, but like honestly, like, no, the purpose of school is, I think it's to broaden your mind. It's to teach you the skill of learning. Does that make
Absolutely.
sense?
It's to
Yeah.
it's to teach well, it's to teach you two things really. So, and the one is linked to a production line, is how to like arrive at 8, sit still till 2, and do a task to completion. That's the first thing. It's the discipline of, and like we had to show up here. I know people were late this morning, but we had to show up here before the show starts so that the show can start on time. If you don't have that discipline after 12 years of going through if you don't have the discipline to show up at places on time, to be engaged for the term that you need to be engaged in, and to complete tasks, whatever the task is, whether it's sewing a shirt or assembling a car or just sitting in meetings. You know what I'm saying? If you don't have the discipline to do that, it's very unlikely that you are going to succeed. The other purpose of school is to make you be teachable. It's not to give you the answers, but it's to teach you how to find the answers. That's what university does. I mean, we all know the statistic that you start in year 1, the things you learn in year 1, because things are changing so rapidly in the world right now, and technology is changing everything. By the time you do your honors, more than half the things you learned in year 1 are probably obsolete, right?
Yeah.
But it's to teach you where to find the answers or how to find the answers. It's not to give you the answers. School's important, yo.
It is, but I think
Shakespeare is important too.
No, this to be no. I ended up liking Shakespeare. I read Othello, Macbeth, Romeo and Juliet.
But like
Hamlet.
today in
I read all these
2022,
things.
as a young man, Bakh'abantu, can you reference Shakespeare to apply to your current like work life or social life, private life? Is it relevant?
It's not. That's what I'm saying. It should have been a choice. It should have been a choice.
Like, when you're trying to pick up
I get it's culture, Sispumi. It's culture. It's culture, honestly. But it should have been a choice.
To pick up a girl, do you think about you gotta be like romantic in some way? You gotta have like some kind of rhyme scheme. You gotta have some game. That's what you learn poetry for. That's what you learn poetry for.
No, but like with the education system in South Africa, I think I go up to a girl, I quote Shakespeare, and then she's like, "What? Is that like from Kanye?"
But on a more serious note, guys,
well, I can't help it if you are into uncultured swine.
Ooh, so early in the day. So if we're talking about the truth of like the state of schooling in South Africa, Bakh'abantu's got a very, very valid point. We have way too many schools that don't even have the basics correct. They don't even have toilets. They don't even have a hall for them to do assembly. The classrooms are in such a dire state. Where do we think we'll be able to suddenly be able to do robotics, labor coding. I mean, Jean in the comments is saying schools don't have classes and textbooks. Limpopo is still in the Stone Age in terms of education. How's robotics and coding going to happen there? And that's the exact thing. I mean, I can applaud them for trying to keep up with the private schools, because we have to be honest, the private schools are definitely there. They've had robotics and coding for maybe the past year or two. But now the public schools, the government's realized that, oh crap, it's our chance. They have to keep up now. But how are they going to successfully execute that if they really already struggling with the basics? And that's something that they need to ask themselves. Because as a mom who has put their child in a private school so that they can get access to body coding, the body robotics, I see the value. I see the big difference. I'm like, oh shit, my child is going to be a what. That's an opportunity I genuinely never got, and I'm glad that I can provide that for my child. But what about the rest of South Africans who genuinely cannot and want to?
Look, I think it's a noble cause that they want to do it. I think that there is a big chasm between what we have today and where they want to get to. But you've got to strive towards something. I don't know if we can trust Angie with it, but that's a whole other story for a whole other day. But I do think that, in environments, there was the thing with Limpopo made here. And I had a very interesting conversation with Professor Chilitsi Marwala. He is the Vice Chancellor at UJ, and he comes from Limpopo. He comes from Limpopo, and he's one of the world's top minds when it comes to artificial intelligence. And he came from, I think, near Giyani, but a village school, right? And he told us the story of how when they started in grade 8, what would be grade 8 when they started high school, the entire grade 8 class, as they were starting, only one person spoke English.
Yeah.
And of their matric class, of everybody, so they had quite a good matric class. And when of the people he was in matric with, he says 40% of them are doctors. Today.
Now, like still now.
Yes, today. And we know he is AI specialist. He is written, he's 46 years old. He's written 25 books. I mean, all of that. But that's also, it shows us two things, right? So one of the things that I'm very passionate about is education is a big thing for me, but also learning in a language that you understand. Most kids all over South Africa, the fact that the government decided that they're making the language, the medium of teaching, English predominantly. There are still Afrikaans schools or dual medium, parallel medium schools, but that disadvantages so many kids, because they don't have access to English the way that kids in the cities do, but they have access to their mother tongue. So what they are learning in school, they're struggling with concepts and they're struggling with the language. They're struggling with the concept and they're struggling with the language. But if kids were taught in their mother tongue, if they were taught natural sciences, which the Zulu word is emvelo, in their mother tongue, if they were taught, like, hello, we would have better results, because they don't have to worry about the language as well. They can learn English down the line. And this story about this particular school exactly so their foundation was solid because they were learning in their mother tongue.
Yeah. And that's really the bigger issue. I mean, some of the people that I interview on the Scissors on my show on Thursdays are people that are in these spaces, and they'll tell you that the problem isn't the subjects, the problem isn't the kids coming to school or not coming to school. It's literally the fact that they cannot read and they cannot comprehend because they're being taught in a way that they just don't understand what's being taught to them, and it boils right down to the language thing. So again,
Sub-Saharan Africa, in the whole world, Sub-Saharan Africa teaches kids in a foreign language.
Exactly. So if we can get to those basics and get those things right, then I think definitely we can start looking into body coding and body robotics and whatever. But we won't get far if these kids are still not reading. They're struggling to read. Then what are we still doing? Anyway,
But like, isn't
Andy,
there a conversation to be had there? But like, in terms of like our languages aren't that progressed though. There aren't any like physics textbooks in this course are like proper like yeah. But like because I went to a school where I had
And
Afrikaans and English, and it was a dual medium school, so I was taught mostly in Afrikaans because the like Cradock in generally is like a Afrikaans community. So I like the teachers don't speak English; they just bad at it, so they just don't. I had an English textbook, but I was taught in Afrikaans. So now like Afrikaans is such a like it's like it had textbooks, it had resources, it has websites, but like we're starting to see now the development of these languages. But I think for the longest time, African languages weren't prioritized in terms of like textbooks and research. Are people writing physics textbooks in
that has to
African
happen.
languages?
That,
Yeah, I think that's where
absolutely
we.
has to happen. Do you know who Isaac Newton is? I'm just going to check.
The apple. We all know the story
Okay,
about the apples.
okay. So no, I'm just checking, right? Do you know that Isaac Newton, when he wrote his first book, Principia, was in Latin because he felt that English was too unsophisticated a language to describe science. English was too unsophisticated a language for science, right? And today, here we are, teaching our kids science in English. So you can do that. That can be done. There is absolutely nothing that stops. I mean, maths, algebra was invented in Baghdad. That shit wasn't happening in English, and here we are, right? So there's
so
nothing that stops us from doing that.
Natalie Dupreez is saying that we're involved in a Xhosa first language high school, and we find that the kids cannot cope in university because their English is not on par. They can't understand the more complicated concepts. So
That's
you
my
see,
point. The concept
yeah.
is in English.
So then, what is the solution? Do
That's
we
the point.
teach these kids English in
That
the
is
foundation phase?
precisely the point.
That's the answer.
That is precisely my point. Is
Sis
you've got
Pumi
to make
is
learning
arguing
you've got to make learning accessible to
decolonization.
people.
Yeah.
You've got to make learning accessible to people in the language that they are fluent in.
Mm.
So
But I think
it's
yeah, like
problematic that
it's Mandela's dream, I guess. Like that's like he has a speech on it, like how you if you approach someone in the mother tongue, it's better than if you approach them like in English and whatnot. It resonates more. And I get this Pumi's thing, but like for me, it's I think the work needs to be done in the background first. Like we need to
Yeah.
really work on that infrastructure because our languages, like I am Xhosa, but I didn't learn Xhosa. My mom always corrects me. She says something on the phone, like there you go, type something on the WhatsApp group. I'm like, I cannot read that, woman. I cannot. And then she's like, oh no, I forget sometimes. But like the only encounter I had with Isixhosa was when I came back home. It's a funny story. I came back home. I think I said something like, oh mom, you're not making sense. And my mom went like, what, you're saying I'm talking nonsense? I'm like, no, you're not making sense. And then she's
that's
like,
exactly what
so
nonsense is. That's what nonsense
that's what
means. It means
that's what nonsense is.
Nonsense.
And then she's like, "You cannot disrespect me, child." I'm like, "Hey, dude, that's what we were taught at school. I'm just voicing my opinion." And then she threw a Xhosa Bible at me. She's like, "No more English in this house." So
Yeah.
like
And
from
see,
then on, like I learned Xhosa from the Bible. But like besides that, like yeah, we just speak English
that's
with
an
everyone now.
interesting thing.
it is. It is very interesting. And you're finding a lot more just like kids not knowing their mother tongue. So I get the educational aspect of it. It's better for you, blah, blah, blah. But I wish at my big age of 31, I still can't have a full-blown Tswana conversation with my parents. Like I can speak it, I can hear it, but I can't just speak it. I have to throw English in there because I was taught English from a young age. And that kind of sucks for me because I want to be able to teach my kids their mother tongue, but I'm like limited already. So now they have to learn. It's embarrassing knowing that my son is learning Setswana at his school. That's where he's learning it. He's not really learning all of it from home. And again, when I engage with the elders and when I go back in my kaya, it's always like they don't speak a drop of English. They are not interested in it. They will just keep it moving in the languages that they speak. And if I get then I'm like, hey y'all, it's like, who is this white woman in a black woman's body talking to us like this. They just do not. It's a no. It's almost disrespectful. And let me
How
even
do
bring
you
it
feel
closer.
about that? No, she's stuck.
There's
Like
also a couple like
English. What
coconut
happened?
and what.
she's
The
like
taxi
having
driver
a
say to you,
moment.
"Why are you speaking English to me?" So experience.
I agree with what Amir is saying, about lingua francas always changing according to the dominant Latin, Arabic, and there are more Africans who speak French than English. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just have to reorientate the way that you see the world. It doesn't, South Africans are too navel gazing.
That's very true.
And
But don't say that to your granny.
if we're going to be competitive, we have to get the foundation phase right. And in getting the foundation phase right, you've got to start kids where you've got to meet people where they're at to bring them to where you want to bring them, right? And our statistician general, the last one, Palile Hotla, came from Lesotho. In Lesotho, they learn maths in Sesotho. Is it a wonder then that the man can be like the leading statistician's mind in Africa? No, in Botswana. In Botswana, they learn in Setswana, and they can be global citizens too. You've got to get the foundation phase right.
Correct. I hope that you can open a school one day, Sis Pumi, so that we don't have this problem moving forward. Just let us know. Where do we sign up? Where do we put our kids? Let us know when you're ready to open that school. I think we should get into some headlines because there are definitely things happening in the world that we need to touch on. I'll start with the pushback against South Africa's extended state of disaster. Absolutely no surprise here. So the government's decision to further extend the South African national state of disaster until the 15th of April 2022 has obviously been met by resistance by opposition parties, businesses, civil society groups, and even us, just random people at the bottom. And apparently, it now faces a raft of legal challenges. So the DA has slammed the extension as unjustified, noting that it was done without proper consultation with experts or the PCC, which is the President's Coordinating Council, and also with no explanation to the public. So it really just seems like at this stage, we don't even know when the state of disaster will be officially stripped. It seems like they're just keeping it going because obviously they can pocket more money. So no surprises. This is South Africa, our land. We can just only hope that comes to some sort of end. But it's annoying. If you see someone wearing a mask and you're not about that life, just keep it moving. Just keep it moving. Just do your thing. Because clearly we're on our own. Putin's children, this is funny. Putin's children and mistress reportedly hiding in secured chalet in Switzerland. Allegedly. Hide but don't see. Peter's children and his mistress are somewhere in Switzerland. Wow, this is crazy. I don't know how this is happening. In addition, the report says that the children of the couple all have Swiss passports. The source told this place that the couple also shared twin daughters and two sons who were born in Switzerland, so it's actually no surprise that they're in Switzerland. But while others are suffering the consequences of this violent war, Putin's family remains safe and secure, including his kids from his first marriage, who's rumored to be hiding somewhere else. So Putin just decided, look, I'm going to cause gag, but my people will be safe. I'm going to put them in VIP in Switzerland in a nice chalet, and they'll be lacquered. But that's the case with most leaders anyway. You'll never see them in the front line. You'll never see them there fighting for their people. They're just always dictating, telling people what to do from the back. So that's no surprise.
Like a South African reference to this, it's like Didi Mabuza, like vice president of South Africa. His kids don't go to South Africa. Like his family's not here. His family's overseas. Like, and then he's out here like having opinions and like telling how South Africans should live. But he's got no investment in the country.
But that's always the case. Most politicians and most extremely rich South Africans their kids don't go to school here. Like they ship them off to other countries, but then they're going to tell us what to do. It's very standard. Okay, I'll do one more. More HIV prevention options for South African women. Oh, this is great. As the vaginal ring is approved. Yay, this is actually something good. Scientists say that the approval of the silicone ring by the health regulator will be a game changer in HIV prevention. And SA women who are at risk of HIV infection will now have more options for protecting themselves against infection after the approval of a vaginal ring by the country's regulator. Okay. So last week, the South African Health Products Regulatory Authority okayed the use of the monthly Dapivirine vaginal ring by adult women, and it's a move that's been described by local HIV experts as a game changer in HIV prevention. This is very interesting. So South Africa is the first country to approve this ring that was successfully tested in 6 African countries as a pre-exposure prophylaxis.
Prophylaxis. The word is
Girl,
prophylaxis.
Prophylaxis. You see why Sis Pumi needs to open the school, guys. This is exactly why Sis Pumi needs to open the school, and we are going to enroll our kids. So that's what's happening in the news this Thursday morning.
No, wait, you're not going to walk away from this. You have to do the tsunami.
Yeah, exactly. Because I also wanted to.
You have to do my headline, because this, when I left here yesterday afternoon, it was like breaking news, and I was horrified at the news. And this is why it's important. I sent it to y'all. I'm looking at the headlines. I got the just so the listeners know, right?
Okay.
We get on a Wednesday afternoon, we get a running order. We're all asked to give our inputs. What are the things we want to talk about? And then we get a running order that has the headlines. I look at the headlines. I'm thinking, what are these people? Like, there's a whole other world outside of South Africa. It's important to have like headlines worldwide. So I send them 2 headlines, one from the New York Times and one from the Washington Post. Also, because you got to be balanced, right? Like 2 sides of the story. This Lebang here, this is a developing story. This Lebang here decides she's only going to talk about like pre-exposure prophylaxis and not talk about the tsunami.
Let's talk about the tsunami, because this really wants y'all to know about the tsunami. Like, Sis Pumi is like, it's in her heart.
This earthquake is a thing. This earthquake is a thing. So there was an earthquake yesterday.
Yes.
Off the coast of Fukushima. And a rather big earthquake. And I think, you know, when the first tsunami happened a couple of years ago, we were all like, what the hell? First time we'd ever even heard the word tsunami. And here's another tsunami warning off the coast. Like, several coastal towns have been warned about it. And it was a big one. It was a big one. But also, the only reason I wanted is because this morning I woke up to the news that my friend Peter Strydom, who is in Japan, has agreed to come on the show. So he's gonna, like, it's all unfolding in the moment, guys. Breaking news.
Breaking news.
Okay, for you, I'll share the fact. So this tsunami waves unfortunately hit the coast in near Fukushima after the 7.3 earthquake. Millions were without power. 3 hours after the earthquake, there were no reports of casualties, and the extent of the damage is still unclear, right? So this was in Tokyo, where a powerful earthquake hit off the coast of Japan late on Wednesday night, and for several hours, residents in the Fukushima region that was battered by a devastating tsunami just over 11 years ago waited to see if another one was coming. So the magnitude 7.3 earthquake hit at around 11:30 in the evening, and the shaking lasted for more than 2 minutes, and 2 minutes is a long time. It's a long time. Now imagine if
an earthquake.
Yes, here in Joburg we have we have tremors here in Joburg because of all the underground mining, and when it happens,
it's traumatizing.
It's a thing. It's traumatizing. Cape Town had one not so long ago. Cape Town had a complete freak out when they had their little.
But like it's such a great thing. Like I think you guys always bring this up on the show, right? Like, coming from the listener point of view, like, South Africa is almost the perfect country. Like, politics aside, like, we're not on a tectonic plate. We don't have extreme weathers. We don't have like these tsunamis. Like, Mozambique kind of got one. Like,
we don't have monsoons.
Like, but like hurricanes, we don't have monsoons. We, like, honestly, it's paradise.
We're chilling.
But like, but then we elected the ANC, so I blame it on you guys.
And that's something we can do something about. We can do something about that. We can do something
Yeah,
about
we
that.
can.
You can't do nothing about living on a tectonic plate.
Mm.
We can do something about our government.
Ms. Pumi, are you going to be speaking to Peter about the tsunami and what's happening in real life time, like as it's happening?
Live report.
In real time.
Okay.
So we'll talk to Peter about it.
The tsunami breaking on Gareth Cliff. Yeah.
So if you want to know more about the tsunami, make sure that you don't go anywhere, because between 7 and 8, Sispumi will be chatting to Peter, who is in Tokyo as we speak. So you can find out right now what's happening there as we speak, which is cool. That's nice. So Sispumi, my bad for leaving out the tsunami news, but there it is for those of you who are interested. Okay, cool. So Bakh'abantu, I know you also in fact, I didn't know that you were a big fan of music. But I realized yesterday that you even like Dolly Parton, because you mentioned that she refused the rock and roll nomination in the Hall of Fame I guess organization, and that for you was interesting. So when did your love for Dolly Parton begin?
Guys, I was raised by a mom, guys. Single mom. Like, of course we were listening to Dolly Parton. I even know some movies that start Dolly Parton. They're terrible, but I enjoy them.
Don't be rude. Don't be rude about your mom. Don't be rude about your mom.
No, I'm just saying, like, no, my mom introduced me to many things, but like Dolly Parton was one of them, and I respect her for that. Now, but like, now my main takeaway, Laban, was like, what's more rock and roll than refusing the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? She's like, nah, I don't need it. I don't think I deserve it. I'm like, Dolly Parton, you are boss. Like, there's this like clip on YouTube. I don't know. I don't know if like if we could throw up like links. Like, there's this clip on YouTube. I don't know who owns it, but like, it's Dolly Parton. She's playing the violin because she's like musical genius. Things we don't talk about besides her breast. She's a musical genius. So she's playing the violin there. She's like, pa, 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 pa. And then she eggs on the audience. She's like, I can play the violin backwards. I can play what I just played backwards. The audience is like, oh no, Dolly, you can't. And then she's like, and then she starts playing it. And then she's like, listen to it again. And then she turns around. And then she plays it like with her back facing the audience. I'm like, Dolly, you're a genius.
Although in fairness to Dolly Parton, right? Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, maybe not her thing, but she is in the Country Hall of Fame. And she agreed to that, like in 1999 when they inducted her. So like, Country Music Hall of Fame, because that's her stick, right?
Yeah, she does raise that. She's like, I think there's more deserving people. I think she was in like a nomination group with Elvis and whatnot. So she's like, nah, I think there's more deserving people. I don't want to dilute the vote. Like, I just don't think I deserve this. I don't think I'm rock and roll. I'm like, Dolly, respect.
You see, respect. That's why I love Dolly Parton.
That's why we all love Dolly Parton, probably. More people should love Dolly Parton.
It's hard to hate her. She's just so like nice, and she makes great music, and her voice is incredible, and she's extremely talented. In her statement, she said, "I do hope besides that Hall of Fame will understand and be willing to consider me again if I'm ever worthy." So that's the part that I don't understand, because she's saying like, not now, but maybe at some point when I'm worthy. I wish all the nominees good luck, and thank you again for the compliments. I think it's interesting in this time to actually have the balls to say no to such a huge compliment. I mean, any other artist would have just taken it and ran and said, "Yeah,
is a boss."
Dolly doesn't need that. Dolly doesn't need that. Rock and roll.
These things still matter, though. Like, if we're being honest, like these Rock and Roll Hall of Fames, these what Hall of Fames, I don't know if we care about them as much as maybe back in the day. Artists these days aren't really pinning their success or their good work based on what other people think of them, and these people that have been in positions to judge over the years, the Grammys, the Emmys, the what
the Oscars,
really
they care. Care. They
but
care.
like
look at who shows up. They show up to they show up to the VMAs, they show up to the Grammys, they show up because like really, who does not want to be recognized for the work that they do by their peers? Because that's what it is. It's your peers recognizing you for the work that you are doing and saying, hey, man, this is great work. Who doesn't want that? You even want your boss to just say, yeah, Great job.
Good job.
Once in a while.
Good job. Attaboy.
Good job. Once in a while. Come on.
But like, no, but like, on a people point of view, like, let's say, like, I get what you're saying, Sis Pumi. It's like peer recognition and peer reviewing and whatnot. But like, let's take the Oscars. The Oscars are drawing like zero numbers. Like, they introduced a new category, like the fan nomination, because they're trying to get eyes to watch the Oscars, because people just don't care about the Oscars. People don't care about like the art side of movies. They just want to watch the next Marvel movie, which brings me to my next topic. Like another thing my mom introduced me to. I'm gonna steal this one from you, Sis Pumi, because I've also been hankering to talk about this. My mom introduced me to The Godfather. Guys,
so it's look, The Godfather is one of my all-time favorite film trilogies, and it's way older than both you and I. So did you love it? It is. It's 50 years old. In fact, The Godfather came out on the 15th of March. It's literally like 50 years and 2 days old.
Yeah. So like The Godfather, like my mom has been telling me to watch this movie, The Godfather, and the only thing that pushed me over, which is like,
you haven't seen it.
No. I finally did, Sis Pumi, in my old age. I finally did, because like it was like, I think I was watching Modern Family. This is the most youth story I have. I was watching Modern Family, and then they do a skit. They do a skit that parodies The Godfather. Then I'm like, perhaps my mom was right. I should watch this Godfather nonsense. And I switched it on, and then it's like 3 hours. I'm like, I just sat there for 3 hours. I was like, wow.
It's really
like, and that right there is the testament. But did you watch 2 and 3? Did you watch the whole trilogy, or did you just watch? I
watched the whole
one?
trilogy. So I went 1 because we have the DVD at home. So I watched 1. I watched 2, pirated that using varsity resources. But yeah, then 3, I watched that. 3 is disappointing. We all know this. But 2 is one of the best sequels ever. I think 2 is kind of competes to being better than 1 for me. But like the Godfather, the Godfather is beautiful. It's 3 hours, not wasted time. Every moment, every scene is important. There's not many movies we can say that about. Every scene is important.
So The Godfather is the movie that ushered Al Pacino's career and Al Pacino to the world. And there is a fantastic article with it, because he's 81 years old now, with him kind of looking back at The Godfather and what it did for his career and how he got the role. Little known story. I don't know if you guys know the story, but he was like, he'd been in one B-grade film before that and was like given the role, called in. The studio didn't want him to have the role. The director fought for him, and he eventually, all the people that are, he's the youngest and the newest, freshest face on in the film, and how that set the tone for the rest of his career. It is a fantastic article.
Michael Corleone.
But also, but also a testament, right, to like great work that can live and take the look. It got our young like millennial here sitting down for 3 full hours. 3 full hours. Did you tweet about it?
I wanted to, but I'm very incognito on Twitter. Wait, this is the point where I'm supposed to like self-promote, like check out my thing.
Francis, Francis,
but like Francis Ford Coppola.
He still has weekends where he just watches all 3 of The Godfather, the comics.
It's actually funny because Francis Ford Coppola like created The Godfather, and Francis likes The Godfather, so I guess a match made in heaven. But yeah, besides The Godfather,
The Godfather is actually an adaptation of a book by Mario Puzo. So Francis Ford Coppola. This is why school is important.
Open the school.
This is why school is important.
we're being schooled by this, but on the real, like The Godfather is one of those movies that has like transcended through like decades, and it gets referenced in other movies, it gets referenced in music, in culture, and it's that good. I don't know if there's anything else that I can really put on that level and say, yo, it was as good as The Godfather. I mean, people have pretty much thingied their whole careers because of because of that character and because of that hardcoreness that was portrayed. All of that acting was on the ball. They had this great balance of like humor, but also like very, very, very hectic violence. And then it's just so easy to stay in tune with what's happening in the story because it's that interesting. They tick too many boxes.
Every moment is important.
It really
moment is important.
Every single thing, man.
But besides The Godfather, like Francis Ford Coppola also gave us Nick Cage. His uncle. So like Nicolas Cage changed his surname from Coppola not to be associated with his uncle because he didn't want the nepotism rub for Hollywood. So he changed it to Cage. So there's actually no for you.
And the surname worked for Sophia. She's an average director.
But also, side note, this whole thing of like adapting books into movies and books into series right now is just such a hot topic, especially in South Africa. Like, I don't even think we've got the time to get into it, but
don't talk to me about the wife. Don't talk to me about the wife.
But I didn't even say. What? Why? Why are you touched already?
She read the books.
Okay, we'll park the wife. We're gonna park the wife for now because this Pumi just doesn't want to hear it. She's not interested. The nice thing is that
have the conversation tomorrow when I'm not here. Thank you.
But I want to have it specifically with you. Anyway, speaking of Sis Pumi, she is going to be handling the burning platform from 7 to 8, which is now. So myself and Bakh'abantu are going to go start our day. Sis Pumi, the torch is being passed on to you.
I thought Bakh'abantu was staying with us. There's a learning moment. Everything is a teachable moment
actually
for millennials.
Well, there we go.
I am under the learning tree.
You're the first people in this Pumi school. Then the rest of us will be watching and hoping that you guys do the best. So good luck, the burning platform. I'm out, but the show is still on all the way until 8 o'clock. It is the Gareth Show. Do not go anywhere.
Middle finger to the authorities and the wealthy people. The fact that he preached about love. This idea that Jesus was this meek and mild guy is also completely false. He went into the second temple and turned over their money tables because he said they were all false prophets and they were disrespecting the house of the Lord. He's meant to have risen from the dead.
And walked on water.
There are also a bunch of people who say that he had mental health conditions. Just because it's about technology, connecting your business to the rest of the world doesn't mean you need to send rockets to space and use complicated solutions. Want to simplicate things? Well, join Jaco Voigt, who is the CEO of Catalytic, on the Unbundled podcast. With skin in the game and a keen focus on educating and assisting you and your business, Jaco decodes all the aspects of connectivity, security, and cloud solutions. Unbundled is brought to you by Catalytic and is available on cliffcentral.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Now we're back.
Welcome to the burning platform.
Hello, Leto. I'm very excited today. Leto's here with us, and we're dialing down. Actually, we're going to dial down the pace on the burning platform. We've got Letos joining us now, and later we'll have Peter Stratum joining us just to talk about his experience in Japan. But Leto, welcome. Is your connection good now? No. And Leto needs no introduction here. He needs no introduction here with us, but I think he's having connection problems. Will you check in on him? Is somebody going to check in on him? Because he did send me a message saying his one. And he's got a couple of things on his mind. But Bakh'abantu?
I want to hear Leo's views. I always enjoy his point of view. I think he's like, for someone, he balances serious and a very interesting take very well. He's very engaging.
And there's a lot happening in South African politics. There's a lot happening in South African politics today. There's a lot happening in South African politics over the past week. Peter's ready, so let's put Peter on while Bakh'abantu. Just so you know, Peter, I'm so excited to have you here. And for our guests, I want you to know that Peter Stratum is a fantastic man and a great South African. He's now living in Japan. He's the president of Amway, one of the biggest network marketing companies in the world, and he's built an illustrative career in that business. He was in South Africa as the general manager for Amway South Africa, was the MD in Europe, and now he is in Japan and the president of Amway. Welcome, Peter.
Hi, Pumi. Nice to be on your show. Thank you for having me. So, konnichiwa, everybody. Greetings from Tokyo.
When I woke up at 4 this morning, I was so excited to see your message because I wasn't sure if you're going to be able to make it. First off, how are you doing and how far are you from the earthquake site? I know it was felt as far away as Tokyo, they said in the news.
Yeah. No, it was bad. I mean, we got woken up around about midnight, alarms went off and stuff like that. And it kind of shook for quite a while. I think it was around about 2 minutes. And I woke up and then I went back to sleep. When I woke up this morning, I had all these messages on my phone saying, what happened? And did you see it? Did you feel it? And is everybody okay? And everything. I'm thinking, oh shit, I was just sleeping through the whole thing. And but yeah, it was bad. There was, I think, a 30 centimeter tsunami, something like that in Fukushima. All the power was out in Yokohama, which is about less than an hour drive from Tokyo. And and there was even a bullet train that got derailed. Like, so 17 carriages, all 17 carriages got derailed. Nobody was injured. Wow. I was taking a walk down the road a moment ago to grab some lunch, and it's business as usual kind of thing.
So you say it's business as usual. And I was thinking about this, that if you live in a place that is prone to earthquakes as much as Japan is, what is the psyche like? So you're from South Africa. In South Africa, we were talking about it as a great place, except for the crime that we live in, which South Africans have kind of normalized, right? We've accepted we live in a crime-ridden country. Is that how earthquakes are too for the Japanese or for expats living in Japan? It's just like, this is something we've got to live with.
Yeah, it's a bit of both. I think that it is normalized. I was sitting at the kitchen counter the other day on a call like this, talking to somebody, and I had my glass of wine kind of out of sight, of course, so nobody can see it. and on the side like that, and the whole room started shaking. We've got one of these lamps that has this kind of like, I don't know, it's like a big steel thing that hangs, and it's always like my earthquake kind of meter, because it starts bouncing up and down like this if there's an earthquake. And that thing started going crazy, and I kind of leant over, I grabbed my glass of wine so it didn't fall over.
Priorities, eh?
Yeah, right, exactly. But heck, the first year or two, I mean, we used to crap ourselves every time it happened. It was terrible. But then again, the other side of it is, I mean, there's so many protocols in place for when something does happen. Here at our work, we go through regular drills so that we know there's radios that you have, there's a process that you have to follow. Yeah, no, it's all very, very, hey, this is Japan. Everything's very, very organized.
Yeah, Japan is efficient.
You don't have to, when it happens.
Everything is very efficient. Trust the Japanese.
Jeez.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it is crazy. And, so the reason why I asked you to come on the show is we often on the show, because it's the burning platform, all the burning issues, but we're also always looking at it. We're so close to everything all the time. And I really wanted to know, just for you from over there far away, you obviously still have family here, I think, and you still look in our direction. You look backwards in our direction every now and again. What is the view of the world, or from Japan's point of view, of South Africa and all of the shenanigans that are happening here?
That's a big question, Pumi. I mean, and to speak on behalf of Japanese, I guess that's difficult to generalize, right? But from my own experience, when I came here, my experience was people didn't really have an opinion about South Africa. It's kind of like out of sight, out of mind. It's so far away. We stuck here in Asia in the middle of the Pacific. And I think if for some reason, well, for obvious reasons, I guess, the Rugby World Cup in 2015 changed that, because we had just arrived here and we got invited to, as it happens, to the ambassador's residence, which is right next to our apartment block, to watch the rugby game, right?
As it happens.
I must tell you about the South African ambassador's residence. I hope he's not listening. He'll ride me over in his motorcade if he hears. Mm-hmm. Anyway, the point is like suddenly Japan played South Africa in rugby, and they won. The Japanese team beat South Africa. It was huge. And so we watched the game there. I'll never forget, because there was half the crowd was Japanese. We were like these newbie kind of gaijin South Africans watching the rugby game. South Africa gets beat badly. It's 2:00 in the morning. You've got half the crowd with painted white and red, eating boerewors with chopsticks. I kid you not.
Wow. Oh wow.
They were braaiing in the garden, and people were eating boerewors with chopsticks. I'll never forget it. And anyway, and from that day, suddenly South Africa was on the radar, kind of in people's minds. So whenever I spoke to people about, I'm from South Africa or whatever, immediately it went to rugby. And immediately this big, fat, cheesy grin came on people's faces. They just loved the fact that they won, right? And that got rubbed in for 4 years.
Jeez.
But yeah, no, I think people have this overwhelming sense of curiosity about South Africa. It's a big unknown. I do a lot of public speaking, and I tell you what, I often ask the question, hey, have any of you been to South Africa? Nobody. Wow. Generally nobody. So people don't really have an opinion. And so like rugby's a touch point. I think this recent, the affairs that are happening in Ukraine and Russia are now a political touch point, because people are saying, hey, WTF, where does South Africa stand in all this? And so, yeah, I'd say it's very, very curious. In contrast to where we were living before in Germany, where people have a very positive impression of South Africa. Germans love South Africans, or shall I say Southern Africans, because they tend to conflate Namibia and South Africa. Kind of, exactly. You get it. So, but it's very, very different depending on where you go.
And speaking of Ukraine, I mean, President Zelensky yesterday, the Ukrainian president, actually in his plea to President Joe Biden, likened what's happening in Europe, in Ukraine, to Pearl Harbor, which I was just like, whoa, dog, that's if you ever want to pull the heartstrings of Americans, Pearl Harbor is a big thing, which got me thinking about, I wonder where Japan stands.
He didn't just go Pearl Harbor, though.
No, he did not.
he didn't just go about Pearl Harbor. He went on about he quoted 9/11. He did I have a dream, and then he's like I have a need. It was
he laid
like
it on thick.
But but what is the Japanese? Yeah, he laid it on thick. Like he pulled on all the American heartstrings, and like everyone in Congress.
Pearl Harbor was a big turning point in World War II. Because it's the thing that pulled America. America wasn't going to the war. You know, it's the thing that pulled America into the World War.
Yeah, like America was not in.
So what's the stance?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, I think you're right. Zelensky did the full-on, you know, to Biden, pack your bags, you're going on a guilt trip type of thing. I mean, this was like he laid it on thick. But Japan, so it was fascinating. So Japan has basically put their flag in the ground. They said, look, we can't countenance what's happening in the Ukraine. We're going to side on the side of humanity, I guess. And they've been very openly rejected what Putin is doing in Russia. To the extent that, just anecdotally here, tweets from the Russian embassy about Japan have been very kind of scathing and snarky and kind of, the Japanese are just Western puppets, all that kind of stuff.
Really?
Yeah. So, but the Japanese are all in with the Ukrainians, and most recently they've opened their doors to. They don't call them refugees because that's a politically loaded thing here, but they call them evacuees. And so they've already accepted, I don't know, it's like 47 or 50 have already come to Japan. We've made ourselves open to our staff members in the Ukraine. If they want to come make a life here in Japan, we will set it up for them. It's a stretch, though. I mean, you want to go from Ukraine all the way halfway around the world to Japan. It's a tough one. But hey, I think it demonstrates a generosity of spirit that I think characterizes the Japanese.
For sure. And I think just saying you've opened it up for your people who work with Amway. Let's talk a little bit about building a career in a foreign country. A lot of South Africans, unfortunately, are looking abroad because of all the internal turmoil we have. A lot of people are looking abroad, moving from the country, trying to make a life somewhere else. For people, for you, you've lived in Germany, which I think Germany is not as different as from South Africa. Japan is a completely different way of life, different culture, very far away. What does it take? What does it take to make it in a career in a foreign land?
I think it's different making it in a foreign land and making it in Japan. Japan has some unique nuances and idiosyncrasies that demand, I think, more from people. We have it's common knowledge here in Japan that expat CEOs that come here, they either succeed well or they fail spectacularly. There's nothing kind of in between. And I think the people that succeed are the people that learn to work with the culture and not against it. They tend to approach the culture with humility and respect and realize that we are visitors here and we're not here to turn people away around to our way of thinking. I think the people that try and do that, oh my God, and I've seen it, the country, the culture will just break them. And so to the extent that, when I started out, my first assignment overseas was in Spain, lived there for a while, and then went to Germany and stuff like that. But I started off very, very arrogant. I thought I knew everything, and it's a South African trait. I've learned that people tend to be outspoken. We have a comfort with profanity, all that type of stuff, and we speak our mind, and it doesn't really work. People don't appreciate it. And I think I've had a lot of that stuffing knocked out of me over the years. And I think I learned a lot of humility over the time and say, look, you've got to respect people and where they're coming from. And maybe I don't know everything. And 9 times out of 10, you don't.
But South Africans have an incredible work ethic. Almost everyone I talk to who's international and works with South Africans, South Africans have an incredible work ethic when people move overseas. And I'm also just wondering, for people who have aspirations to succeed in a different environment? What are some of the things that what are some of the South Africanness that we can take with us into the international environment that can sort of guarantee that we succeed?
I think South Africans are fearless. I really think we're fearless. I think we're incredibly brave. And I don't think we have, too many sacred cows. I think that bravery, that open-mindedness coming from where we come from, this huge, it's a complex environment that we are are born into, and that's our culture, and it's has so many facets to it. I think that makes us adaptable. And so I don't know about work ethic. I'm actually a lazy bugger.
So you say? Yeah.
I'm lazy. I like to work smart, not work so hard. But I have heard that. I have heard that South Africans work really hard. And I think it's probably because they need to make it work, and they make it work. Probably the same as immigrants in South Africa coming from other parts of Africa. Work hard, right? They've got to make it work. I don't think it's much different from that.
Bakh'abantu, I think he's stuck. Do you have questions? Okay, I think he's stuck.
He's
but
stuck.
Peter, he is.
This is why he hasn't got his finger in his nose or something like that. That would be terrible.
Embarrassing me. But what about talent? Does talent count for anything?
Yes. I think talent counts for a lot. As in anything, I mean, work ethic plays a role. Talent plays a role. Bravery plays a role. And I think just an open-mindedness plays a role. For example, go to another country, learn the language. It's an essential thing. And I think South Africans are generally willing to do that. The ones, at least, that I've encountered, in my travels.
So one of our listeners here is asking a question, and I didn't know this, about the Russian-Japan contest on the islands north of Hokkaido. Do you know about this? Yeah,
there's 4 little, I wouldn't even call them islands, I'd call them rocky outcrops that are just north. What you don't realize is Hokkaido and the Russian mainland is like 1 hour
Canada.
It's like super close, right? It's like
like
there.
Canada and Russia.
Yeah, kind of thing. It's like the Bering Strait. It's the same thing. And so there's these 4 little islands that had long been disputed as Japanese territory, and the Russians contest that. And so there's this argument. It's been going on for ages. Shinzo Abe, the previous prime minister, made it a central piece of his foreign policy. He didn't get anywhere with it, by the way. And I think that's probably back in the limelight now, although I think the last thing Russia's got in its mind are those 4 little rocks sticking out the sea. But then, who knows?
Yeah, if they really do have what the West fears, is Russia having quite kind of ambitions of taking over like they did with Crimea that nobody said anything about. There might be something there, which would be fascinating, because again, World War II, Japan was on the other side of that war.
Yeah, and it's interesting. If you look at post-war Japan, I mean, it's very much a product of its relationship with the United States. I mean, very, very much. I mean, they absolutely bonded together over that time. So, you tend to find that foreign policy and trade very, very oriented towards the United States. I mean, for example, you won't find an Airbus airplane here in Japan. It's
wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That is fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
And just in terms of, you touch on trade, how much trade does Japan, if any, does Japan ever do with South Africa? I mean, I know we're big.
I had this conversation with the trade representative it was a couple of years ago, and I actually can't remember offhand. It's not substantial. It's I don't want to say it's not substantial. So let me leave it there. I don't want to quote a number or whatever, but it's not very, very big.
Are there opportunities for South Africans in Japan?
For South Africans, right now, there's not a lot of opportunity for any foreigners. The borders are still closed to foreign business travel. So anyone, I mean, I'm trying to get expats to come and work here. We can't get them in. They're not issuing visas to anybody. So the borders have remained closed for because of this bloody coronavirus pandemic. So, you guys were complaining early on about the state of disaster. Well, we're still in a state of emergency over here. It's coming to an end next week. But they've closed the borders for ages. It's kind of like back to the 1850s, whenever it was, when they, Japan had been closed. Japan was closed to the world for 200 years.
Yeah.
Or more. I need to be corrected on that. But it's a long, long time. And then they opened to trade in the mid 1800s. And it's kind of like this last year and a half, 2 years, it's kind of returned to that. It's kind of shut the borders down. The foreigners will bring the virus kind of feeling, and only now they're starting to talk about opening the borders again and starting to bring limited number of people in. So, I would say that, yes, there's opportunities for South Africans, but at the moment, there aren't any opportunities for anyone. There are still, by the way, there's still 150,000 eligible foreign students that want to work and study in Japan, that have been approved to study in Japan, that can't get in. 150,000.
Wow. Okay, that is a significant number. Well, you bring up the coronavirus, and I've been reading a lot about the resurgence in the East. Kind of China's having a resurgence, and they're struggling with it. I think I even saw something about America with the resurgence of like corona and a feared new strain and another wave and all of that kind of stuff. What has the coronavirus experience 2 years on been like in Japan?
It's been horrible. For me, it's been crap. It's they've had these rolling states of emergency, not the kind of lockdown you had in South Africa, by the way. It's, legally they cannot do that, but they closed restaurants at certain time. You couldn't drink alcohol. It was all that fun stuff. But it's not like you had to stay in your home and you couldn't leave. It wasn't like that. Not like you had police, patrolling the streets. But the Japanese are very, I'm generalizing here, very obedient. So
compliant.
They're very compliant. So if the government says don't do this, generally 90% of people don't do it. But the economy's been hit. Restaurants have been hit. I was talking to a friend of mine who runs the Grand Hyatt Hotel in Roppongi. Last night I was having a drink with him. I mean, for 2 years he's had, maybe 20% occupancy at the hotel. So it's been hard, and the governments had been having to fork out these subsidies to small restaurant owners and all that type of thing. People flying in have to go through, until recently, hotel quarantine, like government hotel quarantine, and stay there. So those hotels have been getting subsidized by people like us that are traveling in Africa and stay there. Awful experience, by the way, absolutely horrible. But and so God willing, it all just gets finished and we can get on with our lives. But I fear that there's going to be another wave, and there's going to be another knee-jerk reaction, and so we go.
And do you miss anything about home?
Oh my God, yes, of course I miss a lot. I haven't been home for 3 years now, because we did a year before the pandemic. We were seeing family in Durban and Cape Town, and we said, this next summer this next Christmas we're gonna spend in Japan. And then the pandemic hit, so we haven't been home for 3 years now. I miss standing around the bar, having a beer. Miss just being able to communicate with people. Here you can't. I mean, I always say South Africa is the land of the corny joke. We always making jokes with each other and talking shit with each other, and kind of revving each other. It's kind of part of the way we communicate with each other. And the more you give somebody a hard time, it means the more you like them, kind of thing, right? Well, here that doesn't work at all. Firstly, you've got to be able to communicate properly in Japanese. And then small talk is not really a thing that, you don't stand in the cashier line in the shopping center and start talking to somebody. It's like everybody kind of keeps to themselves. So yeah, I miss the social connection that we have with our people. There's nothing that'll ever replace that.
Sure, that's I mean, that is quite something, I think, because we often think, oh, it's always better far away, it's always better. You get away from all of the stuff here. And I was saying to the guys earlier, I feel a lot like as South Africans, we're in such a traumatized state right now. We do quite a lot of navel gazing, right? Everything is so loud and so close. It's the ANC, it's Kalniaus, it's this, every single day, it's murders, it's robberies, it's everything is so close and so loud that we kind of don't have a chance to look back and say, what are the things that do work and what are the things that I can do to better the situation, because we can't just sit here and be afraid. We need to.
Yeah, it's true that, if there's one thing that really aggravates me when I go home, it's the degree to which people are so negative. There's this endless complaining about the crime and the this and the that, and it's like, it's not all better on the other side of the fence. You've got corruption. Come to Japan. It's as corrupt as anything.
Okay, you got to tell me a little bit more about that. I saw a billboard in India where Modi is on the billboard and basically the message of the billboard is, if you're going to be corrupt, guys, just also do your job. You can't be corrupt, just also do your job. I was just like, what fuckery is this? I mean, on a billboard. So tell me a little bit about Japanese corruption. I'd love to hear.
It's corrupt. No, I mean, we'll put it this way: the government, the ruling party, a lot in Japan, the LDP has been in power since the Second World War. It's been the same party. It hasn't changed. Yes, there are elections and everything like that. So very conservative, the LDP, and they've been in power forever. And if you look at the history of the formation of the LDP here, there were links to organized crime, there were links to the security apparatus in the United States and so on. So it was formed, but that's what it's been. So it's kind of, and you and I well know that any government that is in place for an extended period of time it lends itself to corruption, right? It goes in that direction. So there was one simple story that illustrates this is that during the initial phases of the pandemic, the government went on a kind of a communication blitz where they were going to tell people, that they had to wear masks, they had to be careful, they had to wash their hands, and all that type of thing, and how people were going to be compensated if they closed the restaurants, everything like that. I'm going to get some of the details wrong, but the principle is the same. So the government granted not millions, billions of dollars to this campaign. The campaign went to the national broadcaster and the biggest advertising agency here in Japan. And but get this, the intermediary was a small little shop over a ramen eatery somewhere, and all the billions of dollars went through there. They skimmed off like a big nice chunk, have a nice day, and then the rest got passed on to the ad agency. Just one illustration. So the point is,
so they have their own Zwelimkhize. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, and they don't muck around, man. They do it big, go big or go home. So
but does it bother the people if everything works? I think the view that we have over here is that the reason it bothers us so much is because nothing works. The hospitals don't work. The school system doesn't work. Nothing. There's potholes on the road. That's what bothers us. Does it bother the Japanese because everything works?
That's a great observation. In general, I don't think it bothers them too much. So, you and I, when we look at what's happening in South Africa, get filled with righteous indignation because of the fact that everything's flipping broken. But here it works very, very well. So I think you're right. It does tend to make people a lot more tolerant or willing to turn a blind eye.
Because I really do feel that way. I think the thing that you say, righteous indignation, I think the anger really is when you have to sit in a hospital all day and there's just so much inefficiency, and then there aren't enough doctors. There was a story last week which is horrifying, that there was no bread at Bakh'abantu hospital. It's, the biggest hospital in Africa, and there was no bread. All of that is what drives us all crazy. If everything worked, I think people kind of, when there's money in the bank, when people are working, all of that kind of stuff, then people kind of look away from it. What's the unemployment like in Japan? Is there any unemployment?
It's very, very low single digits. There is practically no unemployment. So for every job, you've got more jobs than applicants in general, right? So that's not a problem. And the whole societal structure is geared towards looking after people. It's caring for society. So the government's role, and they overreach here big time, by the way, don't get me going, but is to protect the consumer, protect old people, help them, make sure everybody's educated, all that type of stuff. So it's very much caring for every single layer of society as far as possible. And everybody's got a role to play. There's this whole idea of, it gives rise to this whole idea of harmony in society, and anything that breaks that harmony is really frowned upon. They often use the analogy in Japan of the nail. You don't want to be the nail that sticks up, because the hammer will come and hammer it down. So everything's kind of the same. So yes, to a certain extent, it might give rise to a certain degree of mediocrity, but it's very safe, it's very predictable, it's very organized, and it doesn't give rise to this, the righteous indignation which we were talking about earlier on.
Peter, Japan is also a very homogeneous society. Everybody's Japanese. South Africa, on the other hand, has a melting pot of lots of different types of people. In your experience, do you think the homogeny of the culture in Japan also makes it easier for the tolerance, for the harmonious way of living that we don't experience so much here?
Yeah, I guess so. I think that would be true. I mean, it is very homogenous. We did that ancestry DNA test a while ago, right? And it's fascinating. I mean, I'm like a total fruit salad. I mean, DNA fruit salad. And but if you test anyone here in Japan, 9 times out of 10 it's going to be 100% Japanese, 100%. And
imagine,
and so yes, and it makes people very proud of their culture. And people that don't fit that mold tend to be excluded. So, for example, if you've got, they call them hafu. A hafu is a half Japanese, half something else. So
hafu. That sounds like a Zulu word.
Hafu. Really? It's called half. No, so you call it hafu. And anyway, if you're hafu, it's like you're kind of like a second-class citizen. It's like
sure.
It's very, very clear. It's kind of weird, but it's there. So you can call it racism, you call it bias, you call all of this type of thing, but that exists. That exists very strongly. And a mate of mine said to me, he's been living here in Japan for 40, 50 years. He's an old guy. And he said, "Hey, Peter, you're going to try and integrate into Japan, right?" So I said, "Yeah, I'm going to try. I'm learning my Japanese. I'm doing all that stuff." He says, "Don't bother. You will never, ever be integrated." And it doesn't mean it's not bad. It just is, right? It's not a judgment thing. It's just is what it is.
That's what it is. You got to recognize it.
Yeah, it's fun.
So I did ask Bakh'abantu, who seems to be having a lot of coming in and out, because I was just like, Bakh'abantu is an intern here, and I thought this is international exposure for you, Bakh'abantu.
I already met Peter Stratum actually earlier. I met him.
I know.
I'm the one who set him up.
I'm very proud of you for doing that. Thank you so much. But you know, do you have a question, Bakh'abantu, before I ask?
Oh no, I have a question and a couple of comments. Okay, number one, Peter. Comment number one. I am disappointed that you do not have a samurai sword in your background.
That's hilarious. Yeah, no, I'll work on that. I'll work on that.
We're waiting for your questions.
So no. My question is, in terms of the coronavirus, my entire exposure from that side was, it was from the, sorry, technical issues, but yeah.
No worries.
It was from wrestling. Funny enough, I follow.
We just lost your voice.
We can't hear you. While they sort out their technical issues, I'm going to ask you this question. Yes, you're back.
Okay, yeah. So like in terms of like, I think their state of disaster in terms of like the impact on the economy, I thought it was worse in Japan because I watched it live, like with a promotion called New Japan Pro Wrestling, because I'm a wrestling fan. And like they literally shut it down during the COVID like pandemic, and then they still paid everyone because like with the Japanese honor system and whatnot, like people honor in front of business and whatnot. I respected that, but like that was a huge impact on the promotion, like in terms of like from a business point of view, it was like really bad and damaging. So I wanted to see like the impact on like just normal day businesses in Japan, like that surely like that culture of putting people first and whatnot had an impact on businesses and like on the ground level in Japan.
Huge impact. I mean, if you're a small restaurant owner that you make ramen every day, you got a hand-to-mouth existence. Commuter traffic dried up overnight, so you don't have a business anymore. Hotels got decimated. The tourism industry decimated. So the retail sector really hard hit. So you take a city like Tokyo. The retail sector and the restaurant industry rely on tons of commuter traffic. I mean, you've got millions of people commuting into Tokyo every day and then leaving, millions. And so they've got to eat inside the city. All of that dried up. Give you an example of scale. The one station in Tokyo, the Shinjuku station, is one of the largest in the world. It takes around about 3.5 million passengers per day. That's more than the whole population of Washington, D.C. That's one station. So that stuff dried up. So people were hurting. And so, yes, they got some government subsidies, but it went nowhere near, making up for where they were before. And it's still not back yet. I mean, I was walking through Shibuya, where our office is here, and at lunchtime, and it was busy-ish, but normally it would be a crush of people. But it was kind of, I looked over my shoulder, walked across the road kind of thing. It's kind of like sparse. And the traditional views of Tokyo, you've got that crossing. There's like a crossing that everybody crosses like at the same time.
Like that's big crowd, yeah.
That's kind of just down here. It's not so busy anymore. Whereas, for us, we're an e-commerce business. And so, our business barely got dented. So we were fine. Wow. But, you in retail, you got a shop, you got a restaurant, all that other stuff, you were hurting badly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because
I was going to ask you about the business.
Yeah, like that's what I noticed from like a business point of view. I'm like, I think in South Africa we had it bad, but like watching it like in Japan and also like the cultural differences and like the people, they had like a great response to it. It was overreaching to a certain point. It was like very like shut down, almost like China levels of lockdown. But it was like, I was just wondering on a day-to-day basis, it like Tokyo must have just went quiet, which is like for a city that never sleeps, must have been weird.
It was eerie. The first lockdown was like that. I mean, everybody stayed at home. You walk down the middle of the street in Ginza or Shibuya, these huge high rises, and the streets are like ghost town. It was kind of weird. I mean, we saw all those pictures, right? New York, Manhattan, all the cities, Paris, Rome, all of them. It was like that. But I think when we got to the second, third, and fourth lockdown, I think people said, screw it, man. I need to get on with my life. And so it kind of pragmatic behavior kind of crept back in. But it's still not back at the level it was, I mean, pre-pandemic, I have to say.
So Leto is still having problems reaching us, but he's got a question, Peter, and his question is a little bit like my view on the homogeny. He wants to know does it feel different, this government overreach and the fact and the way that the government is, because there is a cultural philosophy of compliance we spoke about before, and a kind of soul understanding of the way things are versus how South Africans, every one of us, have absolutely different departure points for how we view what is right, what is wrong, what is acceptable, what is not, what is overreach, too much and too little. Does that play a role?
Well, I tell you what, you want to see overreach? Come here. I mean, I don't think that this government in South Africa is anywhere near what you experience here. I heard Japan described the other day as a police state with a smile, and it's kind of put it this way: more than 97% of prosecutions in Japan are successful. So the prosecution rate is going to be 97 to 99% successful. So this whole system is designed to successfully prosecute people.
We need to send Shamila Batoyi over there for some lessons.
So you get caught up in the legal system here, and you got trouble. So we all know the Carlos Ghosn case. I mean, he had to escape in a music box and all that sort of fun stuff. But in one sense, there's truth to it. He knew he wasn't going to get a fair trial. But so how do people feel about that overreach? I think it's kind of accepted. I think there's this general feeling that, we know that the system is a little bit rigged, but it's rigged to protect me. It's rigged to protect me from, predatory behavior of multinationals, of, scam artists, whatever the case may be. It's designed to protect me. So I think it's generally acceptable.
So no Tokyo swindlers.
That's my opinion. That's just my opinion.
No Tokyo swindlers over there.
No, like from a point of view. No, I was saying like from a point of view of like from being a South African and not trusting the government, like that must be like really like different. Like where you like in Japan, like everyone trusts everyone. Like it's a pretty trusting society.
It is pretty trusting. I still don't trust the bloody government though. Genuine don't. But yeah, it's kind of a change, I guess. That the cynicism which we have, with which we view kind of authority or government and stuff like that, I would say is a very Western construct, in my opinion, at least. You won't find that in Japan. You won't find it in China for sure. Maybe in Korea. Koreans are very, very, outspoken, and stuff like that. They're also very, very divided, between the conservatives.
Well, I was going to ask you about the relationship between Japan and South Korea, because we know the relationship between Japan and North Korea. What is that relationship like? I mean,
Well, there's history there. I mean, I'm a bad person to ask this. There's people here that could answer this here much better than I can. But there's history there. So there's
deep history of colonialism.
Deep history of where Japan colonized Korea, and a lot of bad stuff happened there. So
and America came.
A good illustration of this. I brought an expat from Korea into a management position here in Japan, and it was a disaster. It was a total disaster. I mean, it didn't work on a number of levels. Culturally, the Koreans tend to be very, let's go for it. It doesn't have to be perfect. Go, and very demanding. Whereas here, it's very measured, get it perfect, all that type of thing. And then you factor in the Japanese Korean history, and it was one of my mistakes I made, shall I say.
Jeez. But generally, the relationship between the two countries now?
It's tense. There's a thing, I probably shouldn't go into it too much, but there's a thing with when this happened, the Japanese took comfort women from Korea and have never apologized for it, and still haven't apologized for it. And so this goes on and on. Every year it's like a thing. And there's always this tension. There's this sense of Japan hasn't properly atoned for its sins, back in the day, and that leads to a lot of political tension.
What could South Africa learn from Japan?
Efficiency.
Oh.
I did that, didn't I?
Well, you've been in Japan too long.
I think a lot. I think the Japanese could learn a lot from South Africans, not to be so compliant, and to be more questioning and critical. I think that's one thing that Japanese can learn from South Africans. I think that the South Africans could learn something from the Japanese in terms of making a society work. There's a focus on educating your kids, making sure that they go through that process. And, I know you guys were talking about this early on, but really it isn't about teaching you to do stuff. It's teaching you how to think and think for yourself and think critically and all that type of thing. They care for their old people. They really care for their old people. And it's an aging society, so they have to. And so there's this sense of societal responsibility that I think, for all its faults, for all its overreach, I think is praiseworthy in many respects.
It's an aging society, you say, and this is a problem in the East. And I think Japan, probably China has a lot more of it, but Japan is also in that space where there are lots more old people than young people, and it's a precarious place to be in for a country and for an economy. How are they dealing with that?
Pumi, a great question. They're dealing with it badly. Yes, it's the fastest aging population relatively in the world. So we've turned the corner. The population's going down now at speed, and it's picking up pace. China's still got to turn the corner, but it's inevitable. They'll turn the corner soon, but they're not there yet. Japan's turned the corner, they're going down. So Japan are looking to robotics to fill the gap. So, certain medical care, things like that. So they're looking to fill the gap with technology, basically. They have still maintained a very, very strict view on immigration. It's very hard to immigrate into Japan. And I think ultimately immigration...
They're going to have to open up.
You're going to have to. I mean, that's the answer to anything. You've got to have people. And yes, they're not going to be genetically pure anymore. Literally. That's okay. That's okay.
Genetically pure.
That statement.
Call it what it is.
It's loaded.
But it's the truth.
Is that important to the Japanese, this genetic purity? So
Yes.
there's not a lot of interracial. And when I say interracial, I mean Japanese white. Doesn't necessarily have to be Japanese black, but Japanese and other.
I've seen both, and so it exists. I mean, it's great, but it's still, I'd say it's rare. It's rare. I think there's a tendency to prefer homogeneity than variety, shall I say? And I think so. In that respect, I think Japan's got a long way to go. They really do.
There's a certain snobbery in that kind of looking for that kind of purity, isn't there?
That's true.
And I'm wondering what kind of problems that raises. I think about if I think about the Jewish society here in South Africa, that's so small and therefore also has peculiarities because of their not having enough genetic diversity, right? Does Japan have any kind of those kind of peculiarities that don't exist anywhere else in the world?
You mean relating to its homogeneity?
Yeah, it's genetics. Do you know? You wouldn't know.
To me, like anyone that is an international citizen, people are people. I can't see that there's any advantage or disadvantage. I just think it's people, and I think it is an element of snobbery. And I'm generalizing horribly here. I mean, I'm not speaking for everybody. These are very general kind of.
We absolutely here at Cliff Central completely understand that these are your personal views. They're not the views of your company or your spouse.
There's some chats. There are some idiosyncrasies in some of those areas. The porn industry, I guess. I don't know. No, I'm reading your comments. It's kind of, there's some interesting stuff coming up there.
No, but in terms of the genetics and like how they're so interested in like your purity and whatnot. Like Peter kind of mentioned something like a word that he just dropped by, like is like gaijin. Like there's words like that. Where in South Africa, like calling someone a foreigner, it's not a nice thing. It is what it is, but like it's really not a nice thing. But like again, Japanese being blunt and precise, you're a gaijin, and you can't grow your way out of that. You can't integrate yourself. You can speak fluent Japanese. There'll always be that cultural barrier that you're a gaijin.
Yes, I think that you've summed it up perfectly. You'll always be a gaijin, and I'll refer to myself as a gaijin, as do all my colleagues in the same boat, and we get referred to that way. And
referred to that way.
Yeah.
Yes.
To your face.
Yes. No problem. And it's not, I don't take it as a derogatory thing. I think it does have certain overtones to it, but I think it's a descriptor. It's like you're not Japanese, you a foreigner, you somebody else. And there's, if you go to Germany, you're an Ausländer, you're an Outlander. And so it's the same thing. If you go to Spain, you're an extranjero. So there's words in all these cultures for these things. You just got to roll with it.
Jeez.
But Japan is the dreamland, Peter. Like it is like the dreamland. I would want to go to Japan, just like on the culture point of view. Like somebody in the comments talked about, like in Japan you can buy an iPhone from a vending machine.
You can buy a lot from a vending machine.
You can buy a lot from a vending machine. I've heard like the weirdest stories, like how people buy like,
yes,
I can say this. You can buy girls' panties from a vending machine.
I've heard that. I've never seen that vending machine. Not that I would want to buy anything from it. I'm just saying.
Oh, you're looking, Peter.
But you can buy a lot of stuff out of a vending machine. That's true. And get this: the vending machines are never vandalized, ever. They are. Everybody respects. Imagine having all the vending machines in South Africa. It'd be a hoot. It'd be a spectator sport. But it would be wonderful to bring you here to Japan and host you sometime and go see some wrestling, some sumo. My wife is a huge sumo wrestling fan.
Wow.
And so maybe next time.
I just want to say about sumo wrestling, and which is one of my favorite things about the idea, because everybody looks at sumo wrestlers and they're like so big and so everything, and people are all trying to have like a six-pack. Just know that the core strength of a sumo wrestler is very severe, much higher than that of some gym buddy with the six-pack. Just know.
They are. I agree with you, Pumi. They are super, super, super strong and super flexible, and the whole tradition around it, the theater. It's a wonderful thing. It's a beautiful thing to watch.
Makes me feel better. Those sumo wrestlers and knowing about their core strength makes me feel better about my mkaba here.
Oh, great.
Peter, this is wonderful. I am so delighted you were able to join us. I really am. And this conversation for me has been very enlightening. And now, because of the comment here about porn, the Japanese porn industry, I can see myself going into a black hole on the internet now, trying to figure out what's happening there.
There's certain things you don't have to research. I think this is one of them.
But it's a fascinating thing to know.
But like, don't Google it, Sis Pumi. Like, stick to anime and yeah. And also, there is a porn industry around that.
And how do we say thank you in Japanese?
Arigato gozaimasu.
Arigato gozaimasu. Thank you
That's
very
it.
much.
Perfect.
Siyabonga kakhulu. This was a wonderful, wonderful conversation. And thank you for coming on and shuffling your day. And even in the midst of an earthquake, indulging us with this conversation. You were magnificent.
It's been an absolute privilege to talk to you all both, and wonderful to be connecting to my country people. And wishing you a wonderful day. And thank you very, very much for having me. Doi tashimashite.
Thank you and goodbye.
And I think that brings us up to just on 2 minutes before the show ends. Yeah. And it's been absolutely fantastic. Bakh'abantu, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. It was lovely having the bank here.
I'm definitely back next week.
I hope next week. We got let down by... because of the Com-Air saga, the person we had lined up for today got caught up in the Com-Air saga and the flights and the this and the this. And so he's going to be joining us next week. I'm also excited about that conversation. Join us, Bakh'abantu, if you can. And to all the listeners, I'm so grateful that you stayed with us for the entire 2 hours. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Peter as much as we did. And we will see you next week. Peace out.
Thank you very much. Peace out.